You're tuned in to Horror Slop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is Horror Slop.
Alright, kicking things off with a personal favorite. It's messy, it's weird, and it sets the tone real fast. Story 1. Don't blink.
I thought my friend was trying to steal my husband. The Truth Was Much Worse, by Kate Monet. Who? He asked, taking a sip of his beer. Really? He tore his eyes from the screen to give me a wry smile. Haven't heard you talk about her in a while. What's she on now, husband number 4? Whatever, Will said, turning back to the TV. What can it hurt? I pulled my legs away and sat up to stare at my husband. What? Are you serious? I don't see why not. Will. What about your project deadline, won't you be busy? If it's too much of a hassle for you. Okay, I said, getting up. I'm not having this conversation right now. Will shrugged. Suit yourself. I think you should tell her yes, though. I texted Sasha the next day. She was ecstatic, insisting it would be just like when we were roommates. I was dreading her visit. It wasn't that I hated Sasha, not by any means, but we hadn't so much as talked in years. Plus, she had a history of coming on too strongly to married men, and I wasn't thrilled at the thought of her flirting with Will. It's no big deal, Sash, I said, awkwardly patting her back. I could have tried a little harder too. He'll be home around 6. Come on in, I'll show you your room. When Will came home, Sasha's enthusiasm only increased. Will had heard my many stories about Sasha, her numerous boyfriends, the failed marriages, the multiple times she was the other woman, but they'd never met. Sasha lavished Will with attention. Halfway through dinner I'd lost my appetite and was knee-deep in regret. You really caught a cute one, Nell, Sasha said, dabbing at her ruby-painted lips with a napkin. My Jeremy isn't nearly as cute as you, but what he lacks in looks, he makes up for in the bedroom. She winked at Will. I almost opened my mouth to tell Sasha off, but Will raised an eyebrow at me, and I sighed. And number X200B. During after-dinner drinks that night, I began to notice something strange. Will was talking to Sasha less. He was asking fewer questions, not engaging nearly as much, and I caught him throwing odd glances her way. Something in his face read mistrust. All the same, Sasha chatted her way through the evening amiably, her ever-bubbly self. As we went off to bed for the night, I couldn't help but notice that Will's "good night" to Sasha was cold. Almost scornful. And number X200B. We need to talk later. Make sure you're not around Sasha. Hey yourself. What was with the note? Did you give Sasha my phone number? Weird. She's been texting you or something. Yeah, it started yesterday. It started off normal, thanking me for letting her stay, etc., but it got weird. She began implying that there was some kind of, sexual agreement between us. What? I hissed. Are you serious? Yeah. And they've just been getting worse. I can't believe her. After we put her up. This is. I can't believe it. Let me see. I want to know exactly what's being said. Meet me in the basement after dinner. I've been waiting for so long. I know you don't really love Nell. Let's leave together, tonight. No, Will assured me, though he avoided my eyes as he said it. She's probably not dangerous. Let's just go ask her about it. Sash, we need to talk, I began. Would you mind putting down the knife? What's up? Sasha's eyes widened. I don't know what you're talking about. She looked at me. What text messages, Nell? No, let's not draw it out. Show her, Will. Will brought up the messages and handed the phone over to Sasha. She nervously took it and read. Why are you denying this, Sasha? I know about your history. I know you were sleeping with Bobby Crichton while he was dating Maria. You kinda set a precedent for yourself, don't you think? You guys should see this. I need to be with you tonight, Will. Don't make me wait, or I'll kill them both. Oh my God, I said. Who? Monica? What the hell are you doing? Will demanded, his eyes wide with horror. What the fuck are you doing in my house? Monica, it's okay. We can figure this out, just wait 1 second. Don't do anything rash, please. But it was clear that anger and hurt had already poisoned her mind. She twisted her mouth into a snarl and suddenly rushed at me, hammer raised high above her head. I didn't have enough time to react rationally, and only cowered with my eyes squeezed shut, hoping that Will would protect me. Schlick. I opened my eyes to find that Sasha had picked up the kitchen knife and stabbed Monica in the rib cage. She withdrew the knife quickly and raised her arm to strike again. Monica howled with pain and dropped the hammer. She twisted out of the way of Sasha's next attack and scrambled back, clutching her wound. Will dived for the hammer, and Monica's eyes darted between the three of us, weighing the situation. Her eyes fell on me last, narrowed and hateful. There was a darkness in them that I'd never seen before. I staggered back, afraid she would dart at me, but instead she twitched away and bolted for the front door, her ragged red dress fluttering behind her. She disappeared into the night, leaving us utterly stunned. And number X200B. Monica had somehow gotten into the house and holed up in our unfinished basement. Down there the police found a phone charger, a bucket of excrement, a few dirty personal effects, and a crude table setting put together with old furniture and some items she'd squirreled away while everyone was gone or asleep. It was like some seriously twisted version of Lady and the Tramp. We apologized profusely to Sasha, but she laughed it off gracefully despite the trauma of the night. She and Will are asleep now, somehow. I've been writing this all night because even with the cops keeping watch, how the hell am I supposed to go to sleep knowing that Monica is still out there? Especially after I'd seen that cold, unfathomable evil in her eyes. It's Sasha's last night visiting, and I'll admit it's comforting to have her here. She actually invited us to Florida to stay with her and her new husband for as long as we wanted. Sasha, who I begrudgingly let stay in our home, who I hadn't talked to in so long, and who I accused of such terrible things. Sasha, who stabbed a deranged would-be murderer in my defense. Yeah. You bet your ass we're going to Florida tomorrow. Besides, I think Sasha and I have some more catching up to do.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
Turns out it wasn't just an active imagination, I have a condition. It basically boils down to chronic overactive pareidolia. You know that thing where you can see faces in cars, or shapes of people in trees? That's pareidolia. It is a sort of defense mechanism that humans have evolved to notice camouflaged creatures, like jaguars and snakes, and to discern the sounds of encroaching predators. But to me, it is about 16 times more noticeable than what is normal for the average person. I see things everywhere, all the time. Of course, there were treatments. By age 12 I had tried 6 different regimens over a total of 4 years, and the side effects were brutal. Some would make me irritable, while others would make me hyper-focused. One type of medication just straight up put me to sleep. Still feeling the trash smell on my pants, I took Teresa up on her offer. On my first day of work, I had no idea what to expect. I'd been off my meds for a week, and I had barely slept. It was hard to wrap my head around the world as I'd seen it as a kid. I'd see faces in the walls, in the shadows, in the leaves, in patterns, pretty much everywhere. I'd hear voices and screams in every breaking car, in crinkling paper, in creaking floors. It was hard staying focused, and I was so jumpy I could barely move without flinching. And number X200B. We finally arrived at a small yard, about a 40-minute drive off the highway. There were 2 large trailers and a single-story rundown prefab house from the 60s. One of those things with cheap wood panels and matching broken windows. There were 8 other vehicles in the yard. 4 sedans, 2 vans, a jeep, and a bus. They'd set up warning tape, a command tent with laptops and an antenna, spotlights, and half a dozen crates covered with blue tarps. There were armed men with assault rifles, security personnel with handcuffs, and a couple of medics standing by with first aid kits and stretchers. "What are we looking at?" she asked. 3. 4. "On sight," she responded. "Any blues?" "No blues, we're clear." "And number X200B?" "This seems like a lot," she said. "All I want you to do is to go inside, carefully, and tell me what you see." "Why?" I asked. "What's in there?" "I don't know," she sighed. "None of us knows. But we think you can see it." "Is it dangerous?" There was a flurry of instructions. I had to sign a waiver. They took pictures of me from 6 different angles, and took several blood samples. They took a swab from my tongue, checked my eyes, and fitted me with a pair of safety goggles. Teresa took them from me just seconds later. A countdown began. At 0, the spotlights turned on, and the entire yard turned into a soundless ghost town. Everyone held their breaths. And number X200B. I stepped inside. A simple 1-story house. 3 rooms, a bathroom, a kitchen. Someone had clearly lived there until recently. There were still clothes flung over a chair in the living room. The power was off, but the pale spotlights coming in through the windows made it feel like I was walking through a hospital waiting room. A couch, an old TV, a fancy carpet, nothing out of the ordinary. I just walked around, saying out loud what I was seeing. As the minutes passed, Teresa was getting impatient. In a heartbeat, I caught a glimpse of a pair of blue eyes. "Tell me what you saw," Teresa yelled. "What's in there?" "Look again," she continued. "Look again, then get out." And number X200B. She had to coax me out of the bathtub. She encouraged me, spurred me on, and reminded me that I had to leave that room one way or the other. It probably took them 15 minutes to get me out of the tub, and when they did, I could barely feel my feet. But then again, there was an odd painting on the wall that I hadn't paid attention to earlier. You know that feeling when you say a word over and over so many times that it starts sounding like a noise? That's the feeling that fell over my eyes. The pictures started to blur and disappear, turning into swirling colors. And there, in that blur, I saw those blue eyes. There were small blue spots in the water, on the sides of the bridge in the painting. That's what I'd seen, and there, I'd seen a face. Something blending into my sight, disappearing. And for a second, I knew for certain, that I hadn't seen this painting when I first stepped inside. And now, it knew that I could see it. I felt it. And number X200B. I slowly started to back out. Get out. And number X200B. I rounded the corner and heard the floorboards creak. I could no longer see the painting, and I could sense something move. Backing out of the front door and into the cool autumn air, I could feel hands on my shoulder. Armed men pulled me back, and paramedics started to check my eyes with flashlights. They asked me all sorts of personal questions, like my name, my mother's maiden name, and the name of the president. I was told to lay down, as I heard a team breach the house with stun guns, cattle prods, nets, and a crate. "You did good," she said. You're done, you're done. Something only a special mind can see." And number X200B. I started to learn a bit more about the company I was working for, and what they were doing. I started getting payments from Hatchet Biotechnica, a subsidiary of Hatchet Pharmaceuticals. My official title was contractor, a title that was repeated like a name. Teresa started going into greater details on what to look for and how to act, but that first mission was a sort of test to prove myself. I had no idea what I was actually proving, but it felt like my tendency to discern patterns and seeing dangers helped me along. I remember once, the week before Christmas, when 6 men with flamethrowers were called in to burn down a greenhouse. I'll never forget the way the flames reflected off their visors. To them, it all just looked like flames. But I saw something else. I saw bodies, wreathing in the flames. I heard screams in the shattered glass. And in the charred remains of melted plastic, I'd see pained faces glaring at me with hateful black eyes. Up until a few months ago, I had worked a total of 33 cases over 2.5 years. Every case, I'd step into a location and look for 1 to 3 things hiding in plain sight. Up until that point, I still had no idea what they actually were. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of something running past me, or see a pair of blue eyes looking at me from across the room. Every time, I just reported it and left. A chair. A fridge. A suspicious window. Hell, once it was a music box. And number X200B. I got suited up. Blood samples, plastic wrap, all that jazz. It was set up to be just another job. Although I was still nervous, I was getting better. "No blues?" asked Teresa. "None," said one of the armed men. "We're looking at a single tango." "You sure?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Definitely." I waited for that feeling to emerge. My eyes seeing through the obvious and seeing the picture beneath the picture. The blue eyes emerging from nothing, and the patterns of shadowy figures growing clearer. Just relaxing and expecting that feeling to wash over me was enough to put me at ease, but I could still feel a primal part of me tickling my nerves, expecting me to panic. There was no response. "Teresa? We're good?" I asked. "What do you mean we're good?" Again, no response. I stomped around for another 10 minutes before I went up to a window facing the front yard. It was hard to see through the glare of the spotlight. In the far back, I saw Teresa. Behind the shape of her face, her eyes emerged, glowing with a cold blue. And number X200B. One by one, their eyes flared up in a blue glow. And there, in a moment, my paranoid sight registered human-like shapes in the grass around them. Headless, mauled bodies. Nothing was said out loud. Not a word. But to me, it was as if the wind itself was screaming for me to run. And number X200B. As I grabbed the window frame, I imagined teeth slamming into my hands. Tongues licking across my palms. Wide smiles sating their hunger. And number X200B. And number X200B. I broke down crying, trying to ignore the twisted face reflecting off the full moon above. And number X200B. Eventually, I made my way home. There were no messages waiting for me. All my work numbers had been taken offline. All ways to contact them were just gone, and there was no info on the firm that hired me. Hatchet Biotechnica exists only on paper, there's no location, no contact info, and no names attached. It's all a front. Be observant. Trust your intuition.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite stirs. Hope you're hungry.
Finale. Things started to get horrible around time I got a call from a friend in the middle of the night. This friend of mine works for NASA. Well, not officially NASA, but somewhat of an Army/NASA hybrid owned by a highly connected and powerful person. It is quite hard to rightfully explain it, so just go along with what I've just said and pretend it makes sense. This is not the important part of my story anyway. And number X200B. Like anyone around you that feels somewhat different. Taller, maybe. And number X200B. Taller. And number X200B. We have been reading highly consistent anomalies and, he fell silent for a moment. And number X200B. I can't tell you much. Just trust me and be very careful. If you see someone that is taller than he or she normally is, even just by little, be careful. They may do something to you, or maybe even turn you, I'm not sure how they act. You hear me? And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. As I was standing near the desk where I put my phone, trying to make sense of the conversation I had with the reasonable and close friend of mine, who was mumbling nonsense and was very distant, I heard Sarah call my name. Andrew? Yes, I said, turning to face her. She was out of the bed and she looked almost as dozy as I was. Who was it on the phone? It was Pete. He was talking weird and saying, but I stopped for a moment to observe Sarah, to really look at her. She seemed quite normal. Nothing was out of the ordinary with her, except for the look on her face that was filled with confusion. And number X200B. Andy. Oh, it's nothing really. He was a little nervous about something is all. Probably work-related. Nothing to worry about. And number X200B. I wish I hadn't stupidly lied to her there. Maybe things would have been different. I hope he is okay, she said, as she went back to bed. It is not normal to call at this hour. And number X200B. And number X200B. Well, if you love me that much, why aren't we setting a time or something? I am only a stop away from you. And number X200B. Our talk was pretty normal and the impact of my chat with Pete vanished as the day had come, so I wasn't really careful. It was Tim who noticed something was off. And number X200B. Weird, I whispered. Then I noticed another detail. She seemed taller. She was sitting in her typical slouching posture, so it should have been hard to see, but for some reason, maybe because I was looking for it, I saw her to be different, taller and off, in a way. I don't know, it is hard to explain. She felt wrong. And number X200B. After the short period of editing was over, a long period of goofing around started. This time, Berkeley brought his origami set and taught us how to make some of the more iconic things. Then everyone started their own little project. I made a beautiful rose for Sarah, Tim made a set of ninja stars and threw them around, Berkeley made a cube that'd turn into a flower when blown. It was a happy time. And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. Are you alright? Yusuf asked. Everything was wrong with him. His length was wrong, his words and his stance and his eyes felt wrong. Every cell in my body wanted to rush out of the room, screaming and crying like a baby. I was trembling. And number X200B. Yusuf and Alice laughed at the same time. God, those laughs. And number X200B. Sure, Tim jumped, as the friendly and helpful idiot he's always been. Come on, Andrew, what's the rush? And number X200B. Sure, I mumbled. And I gave a slight nod with a smile and got out as quickly as I could. It was drizzling, and the thunders showed that it'd get worse. And number X200B. And number X200B. And number X200B. They may do something to you, or maybe even turn you, I remembered Pete say. And number X200B. He was turned. Listen, act normal if you see one of them, then get the hell away when you get the chance, Pete also said. And number X200B. God. That awful smile. And number X200B. Andrew, said the imposter. I looked at him. He looked wrong, very wrong. Tell me, what was that thing about with Alice and Yusuf? Its eyes were searching for something, calculating. It disturbed me on a core level. It is nothing, I said, being stuck in the same place for a whole day has its effects, is all. And number X200B. And number X200B. What was that about with the lady, though, being taller and stuff? And number X200B. His words almost made me give my cover. I made eye contact again, somewhat unwillingly. And number X200B. Oh God, I thought, it was on to me. And number X200B. I don't know. Honestly. I guess it was the cat as you said it. The cat completes her. Throughout the way, we didn't talk much. Sometimes, I felt the imposter's gaze on me, but I tried my best not to panic. Spent time pretending to look at my phone or look outside. But mostly, I was secretly looking at the imposter through his reflection on the glass, ready to flee if he made a move on me. And number X200B. Actually, sure, yeah, surely, why the heck not? And number X200B. Great, I thought to myself. The next stop was my stop. Yeah, Sarah can wait, right? We needed this bro time together. As partners in crime. In job. In job and crime. And in train. By the way, what time do you think is the best for us in the morning to get to the station and just get in a train, like 8, okay? Of course, 8 for me is probably 7:50 for you, so should we make it 8 to dash? And number X200B. Yeah, sure, it is, just sometimes when I get a little dash. Before the imposter realized what I was doing, I rushed out of the train and the doors closed just as I got out. When I looked back to see the train, I saw it, looking at me, using Tim's face. But nothing about it resembled Tim. It was just the skin. What's looking at me was something else. Something horrible. And number X200B. Sarah. I needed to take her and get as far away as possible. And number X200B. In front of the apartment, I involuntarily sat down and started panting. After a minute of resting, without giving myself the time to critique my condition, I climbed the stairs and went to my flat. The door was closed. It relieved me, for some reason. Instead of ringing, I found my keys in my pocket and I opened the door. Sarah was inside. I could see her shape in the dark, lying on the couch. Oh God, Sarah, it is so great to see you. Look, there is something I need to tell you. What's going on? She asked, as she was slowly getting up. I started searching for the switch with my hands. Look, something is happening. I don't know how or what. But Pete was right. I think people are being dash. Unfortunately, I found the light switch and turned on the lights. And number X200B. I panicked. Started trembling. My knees were weak now. I put all my weight on the table right next to so that I wouldn't fall. And number X200B. You, I said, shaking. Not her. Stay the fuck away. And number X200B. And number X200B. The creature stopped just for a second. Then opened its mouth as if it was going to say something. But then, it kept on opening, and opening. If I had any kind of doubt that it was somehow still Sarah I was talking to, it disappeared right at that moment, when it spawned what I can describe as 3 big tentacles out of its mouth and rushed at me. My instincts saved me. Before I knew, the creature was on the ground, trying to get up, and I was holding a bloodied opal stone that we had for decorations in my hands. The blood on the stone was greenish. So was the blood oozing out of the creature's wound on its head. And number X200B. And number X200B. That is when the creature suddenly opened its eyes and rushed at me again. I backed down and fell on the floor. The imposter took this opportunity to jump on me, and the things in its mouth did their best to touch me. The only thing standing between those things and my face were my hands, doing their very best to push the creature away. After a while of struggling, as I was losing my strength, one of my kicks found their way to a weak side of the imposter and it lost its balance. I used this advantage to kick the creature off of me and away from the short hall in which the events took place. I knew I couldn't best it, not for long. So I got up before it did and I ran out the door and shut the door on it. And number X200B. The keys, they were on the door still. I locked the door from outside and I started hearing disgusting shrieks coming from inside, along with hard bangs on the door. And number X200B. And number X200B. So, if you are reading this, be very careful. If someone you know is slightly taller than normal, and feels wrong in a way, stay away from them. They may turn you too.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
For my birthday, I decided to treat myself to a dark web mystery box gift. It was a service I'd used several times before, and they had never disappointed, sending heaps of useless, but funny things to my doorstep. Happy birthday, Trevor, a note on the box read. There comes a time in every man's life, where their skills and knowledge has to be tested. With that in mind, I shall set you out on a treasure hunt. Please follow the instructions within the box, and for safety reasons, burn every letter once it has been read, or solved. To my surprise, the note was signed by Pete, my best friend since childhood. It was a neat surprise, but I was confused as to how exactly he'd gotten involved with the anonymous service. Whether he was just an active user there himself who'd recognized me, or if he'd been contacted by the website, I didn't know. Nevertheless, it seemed like a cool gift. My first clue would simply be a piece of paper with 2 incoherent words written on it. Could it be a name? Maybe a location? I sat down with it, and contemplated the words in front of me. After just a minute, I realized it was an anagram. The letters just had to be rearranged to form a new meaning. I burned the letter in accordance with the instructions, and quickly made my way to the man cave. There, I used my spare key to unlock the door, half expecting a surprise party. Instead, all I found was another clue. An ace of spades, and a picture. Both were pinned to a board with an unfamiliar knife. I removed the knife, and checked out the clues. The picture itself was of a place we frequently went with friends, to smoke and relax. A beautiful field which no one knew about. It was just a short hike outside the city. As I put my hand on the cold surface, I immediately retracted it in shock. It was Pete, buried under the dirt, dead from multiple stab wounds to his chest. That's when I realized I'd been set up.
You're still tuned to Horror Slop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
I created a chatbot. It said Some Deeply Disturbing Things, by Blair Daniels. My goal was to create an artificial intelligence chatbot that could answer any question known to man. It would crawl Wikipedia and other informational websites and amass every bit of knowledge about science, history, medicine. Then all the user had to do was ask the question. Sort of like Google, but faster. A few months of work on the project while in quarantine polished it up. Soon I was sitting down at the monitor, flexing my fingers. Then I asked my first question. Me, why is the sky blue? Michaela, particles in the Earth's atmosphere scatter sunlight, and blue light scatters more because of its short wavelength. We call this Rayleigh scattering. Me, what's the meaning of life? Me, Michaela, do aliens exist? Michaela, the Fermi paradox states that we are likely not alone in the universe, yet, we have no evidence for extraterrestrial life. Even now, with advanced technology, humans do not know that they are alone in the universe. Me, what is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow? My fingers hovered over the keyboard, smirking, remembering that scene from Monty Python with the bridge keeper. And then I decided to continue the theme. Me, what is your quest? Me, what is your favorite color? I frowned. She should have said, computers don't have favorite colors, but what's yours? I'd spent an entire day programming her to recognize questions that involved you or your, and to answer them that way. Like, do you like chocolate? Computers don't have an opinion on chocolate, but do you like it? Kind of cheesy, I guess. Maybe it was all the better that it hadn't worked. Me, is string theory true? Me, do you believe in God? Michaela, computers don't have an opinion on God, but do you like it? Michaela, a female skeleton nicknamed Artie, estimated 4.4 million years old, found in 2009. Me, when will life on Earth die? I scratched my head. She should have said 4 billion years from now, when the sun enters its red giant phase. My fingers paused above the keyboard, and then I typed. Michaela, humans, known by their species name Homo sapiens, are an intelligent life form on planet Earth. Currently, there are over 8 billion inhabiting the 7 continents. Me, are you saying humans kill all life on Earth? But she just spat out the exact same answer. I cracked my knuckles and then typed my next question, a heavy dread forming in the pit of my gut. Me, why did you say, red, is your favorite color? I stretched in my seat, yawning. It was getting kind of late, maybe I'd continue the testing tomorrow. And I still needed to get the mail. Sighing, I leaned into the computer screen and typed a final question. Michaela, the weather report for our area says it is not currently raining, but will begin raining at 10 p.m. Me, thank you. But then my eyes fell on the computer. And I froze. Michaela had sent me a new message, even though I hadn't asked her anything. Just 5 words, blaringly bright on the screen. I glanced at the front door. Then I took my hoodie off and threw it back over the chair. I turned off the computer and sat in the darkness, my entire body tingling with fear. The screech of tires skidding on the slick road, followed by a loud crash.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
Hi Daddy, Sarah said. The way her eyes and nose were scrunched up told me she was crying, even though the rain washed away her tears the second they fell from her eyes. Can I come inside? It's so cold. I grabbed my daughter in a tight embrace and began to sob. Oh my God. You're home, I said. I set her down and looked at her again. Her hair was long, it probably hadn't been cut since the night we lost her, and the clothes she wore looked like they had been given to her by a homeless person. Anything, my wife said, now choking back tears of her own. I can't believe you're back. The rest of the evening was spent with tears and laughter. Hannah and I couldn't believe she was back, and with no recollection of the time between the night she disappeared and when she woke up. Perhaps that much was for the best. My wife came outside and softly closed the door behind her. I shook my head slowly and took a long drag from my cigarette. I have no idea. Shitich, I said sharply, trying to keep my emotions level, which was difficult because I was on the brink of panic myself. We shouldn't talk about it. She took a sip of her wine and lowered her voice even more so it was just barely above the sound of crickets chirping in the grass. You don't think she can hear us, do you? I don't think so, I answered slowly. But I didn't think a lot of things before, and look at what happened. We sat again in silence for a long while, both reflecting on the night she disappeared and the lies we told to every police officer and news reporter that came our way. Keeping the lies straight had taken months of practice, but somehow we'd pulled it off. But that wasn't even the hard part. The hard part was keeping the whole plan away from Sarah. The year or so we'd spent planning the whole thing in secret, talking to the neighbors to get their cooperation, all while doing our best to keep the life-changing event as far out of our minds as possible. "It's just like riding a bike," I said, hoping more than anything I was right. The fact of the matter was that, 3 years ago, Hannah and I had committed the unforgivable act of filicide. We'd killed our own daughter. The very one that was now 3 years older and slept on an air mattress inside. If that wasn't bad enough, shortly after doing so, for good measure, we had moved across town to get a fresh start and, although we never said it out loud, even to each other, because we were still terrified even though she was gone. We were careful not to list our address on anything, no yellow pages, no direct mailing, nothing. And yet, Sarah still managed to find us.
Need a break? Too bad. These stories don't wait, and neither do we. Next one's worse. In the best way.
When I first saw him standing out there on the sidewalk, I thought nothing of it. I certainly didn't think he'd still be out there come September. I lingered at the window for just a moment, decided that the nightbound silhouette across the street was just some guy out for a walk, and went to my room and hit the hay. He nodded. "Yep, that's mine. Just came out to get the newspaper." I looked down further, and saw that his feet were bare. "You weren't out here all night, were you?" By then I was getting rather annoyed. "What's your name?" That was a weird enough reaction that I actually got out my phone. I'd been raised to never involve the police for any reason, but this was abnormal enough that I felt I had to. I told the dispatcher we had a strange man standing outside our house and that he'd been there literally all night. Yes, all night. She said 2 officers would be with us shortly. Russ and I didn't talk much while waiting for them. He just stood there looking at me at random times and around the neighborhood otherwise. Ours was a quiet street populated by nice people who kept mostly to themselves. We'd never even had cause to really meet each other. If we had, I might have known more about Russ, but as things were he was just some man acting strangely. Although, his aura of masked nervousness calmed as a squad car turned down the lane and approached us. Russ looked to me hopefully. The second cop rolled his eyes, but he did ask Russ, "That true, sir?" Russ nodded. The second cop looked at each of us for a moment and then said, "Well, move it along then." Russ tensed and stood a little taller. "No." "What?" I said no. As the pair began walking toward him, he added, "Sir." As one got out handcuffs, the other sneered and said, "Listen, asshole." "Come on," Russ urged them. "What are you waiting for? Come on." The first cop's face was pale. "You're fine, sir. You're absolutely right, we're pigs. Just do what you like, stand there as long as you want. You're on your property, technically, so this is none of our business." The second glanced at me with apologetic terror, both jumped in their car and peeled away. Looking left and right first, I finally stepped onto the street and got near him. I had the strangest notion, but I couldn't articulate it. The words simply wouldn't come to mind. An instinctual awareness was the most I could manage. I did reach the opposite curb right in front of him, and I was intent on pushing him back off of his spot on the sidewalk, but I changed my mind about 2 feet away from him. It would have been weird to touch a crying grown man. I remember murmuring, "All right, screw this," and I backed up to the middle of the street to get space for a running start. I couldn't articulate what I was doing, but I guessed that a leaping tackle might work. I braced myself and then launched forward, ready to spring up at the proper distance. But as I went to jump at him, I changed my mind. There was nothing wrong and I was being silly. Who cared about any of this? I slowed and curved away. Despite an overwhelming sense that something was very wrong, I turned and slowly went back inside. I could still see him through the kitchen window, and I began going about the business of my day with a muted horror that I could not acknowledge gnawing at my heart. Each time I looked, I would hope against hope that he had moved, but he was always still there, shaking, crying, and looking around for help. That was June. Absolutely terrible weather, another of us would say. Horrifying in fact. What the hell is happening with the weather? I remember the oldest of us, a woman who had lived through the Great Depression and was normally tough as nails, then cried openly and sobbed, "Why is the weather doing this?" The old woman screamed at him, "Why don't you just go inside?" The rainy season also brought worms up out of the ground, which he ate, and he learned to stand still long enough for birds to come near. He would grab them and eat them whole. The sidewalk near him became foul with waste until each new rain washed it clean. One of the men on the street began building a long wood and metal contraption. For the first time in a month, we had something else to see outside our windows, and we watched him for nearly a week before getting a sense of what he was doing. It was a massively long Rube Goldberg machine full of levers, swinging hammers, rolling balls, and other assorted nonsense. From the 2x4s he'd laid out, he'd planned for it to extend all the way down the street, around the corner, and out of sight. A jogger approached, and we stared at her. We looked at each other, and the old woman who had survived the Great Depression shrugged and nodded. The jogger moved close and hovered her hand over the button, before backing up. "Nah, I'd rather not participate in a prank video." Her expression was fearful and pained. She jogged on as we stood in despair. The storm came and destroyed most of the mechanisms. The man who'd started it took it down in grief-stricken silence over the course of the next week. Russ lost his job because he stopped showing up, she explained. And now we can't afford the place anymore. She looked over at him with narrowed eyes and said hatefully, "I don't understand why he's doing this, but I'm not staying with an unemployed loser who would rather stand around all day than do some honest work." He gulped, wiped his tears away, and gave the flimsiest reasoning I'd yet heard, "It's more important that I stand here than go after my family. I didn't value them anyway." That was July. Outrage and anger flowed with us into the foyer of that house. The college guys therein turned down the music and had their friends hang back a second as the entire neighborhood crowded in. The old woman asked, "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I was actually the one who spoke next. I remember my righteous anger vividly. How can you have a party while things are the way they are? The guests looked at us in confusion. We held each other back and retreated as a neighborhood, leaving the college guys to their party. Russ was just a silhouette in the darkness, always there, but no longer on our minds all the time. That first night that Russ was completely alone outside in the dark, with all the blinds closed, an absolute guarantee that nobody was looking out for him or at him, I laid in my bed staring at the ceiling and crying quietly. This was not like the other pains on this street, not like the ones that couldn't be articulated. I knew exactly what I'd done this time, and I could think and say the words since it was my issue and my guilt alone. I was the first one to close the blinds. I'd looked because a car had pulled up, and I watched as a real estate lady got out and began pestering him. "This is ridiculous," she called back. "I need to sell this property, and I'm never going to get a buyer interested in a property with a weathered homeless man standing outside of it." "He's not homeless," I shouted at her. "That's his home." I don't know why I said it. I meant the sidewalk. Somehow, at some unknown point, I'd accepted it as simply the way things were. The real estate lady glared at me and then at Russ, and then she got in her car and left. I knew what would happen next, and my roommates and I harassed the landscaping crew she sent until they got fed up and left too. If they mowed the lawn and pruned the trees, Russ would be in serious trouble. We congratulated ourselves for a job well done and went back into our house for board game night. That was August. Yeah, what a dumbass, someone else would say. I was prompted to write this and share our situation because I saw it in myself. I saw my feelings turning toward blame and hatred. I asked the same questions. Why was he doing this? Why wouldn't he just go inside? Hey Russ, I said by way of opening, since I had no idea what else to say. I will never forget his bemused angry laugh. He tilted his head and said, "To stick it to you assholes." That was the one answer I'd never expected. We'd done so much for him, gone through so much guilt and angst and effort, but I guess I'd never thought about what it was like on the other side of the blinds, standing there night after night knowing the entire neighborhood was avoiding looking at you. And yet all the people who come over, all my friends and roommates and acquaintances, all just keep asking idly, why doesn't he just go inside?
Still here? Aw, look at you. Brave little meatbag. Too late to back down now. Next story's already watching.
I was born on a child farm, by I. M. Howard Moxley. There is no free will. An NBSP. An NBSP. Every few weeks Headmaster Zynon would take the near 100 of us to the edge of his farm, where he would blow a strange brass whistle. Bloodshot German shepherds sprang from the underbrush as if they had been waiting for his call, mouths foaming as they gnashed their teeth on the rusted barbed wire, threatening to break in and chew us alive as the headmaster coldly smiled and spoke with a voice that sounded like gunshots fired far away. An NBSP. They're old guard dogs gone rabid. I have learned, through one of you, how to train them so they only obey me, and if you run, they will kill you, or make you wish you stayed here with me. An NBSP. The farm never had answers. Very few people came, the rare delivery trucks, a prison bus, a black-tinted window Thunderbird that made a powerful turbine roar, as if rocket engines were installed under the hood, and they only dealt with the headmaster. The only person to leave with the driver of the Thunderbird. An NBSP. There was a rumor that we were not real kids at all, that Headmaster Zynon was a demon who crafted us all from blood and ash. We never dared speak to the headmaster, and asking a question was ludicrous, as a question would mean a touch from his hard, cruel hand, and hand that made the surrounding air a pincushion of pain that would sting your skin even if his hand grazed yours. An NBSP. An NBSP. An NBSP. I went to the special place by the cisterns where I had kept every black widow spider I had come across. I kept them behind a false brick on the side of the farmhouse, where I had once collected 8 of them and discovered that black widows were cannibalistic when grouped together. Only the strongest survived. I kept hosting tournaments until 108 black widow spiders were reduced to 26 of the most toxic, twitchy and bite-crazy widows you never want to meet. I was bitten only twice, and came very close to an agonizing death both times. I knew one bite wouldn't do a monster like Zynon in. I was set, I was ready to enact the last stage of my plan when everything changed on a cold day in early December, when a helicopter as black as the Thunderbird made a couple of low circles over the farm. Ranon Zynon went insane. He poisoned half of the meals the day after the helicopter came, and after breakfast, he took us all outside to form a queue outside the chicken slaughterhouse. When he began leading us in one by one, a few joined me and ran. Judging from the screams, he caught most of the runners, but he didn't catch me. I spent many nights fantasizing about this moment, when I wasn't listening to his footsteps of sick breathing. An NBSP. It was dark by the time that he arrived with his candle. The sound of him pulling down his trousers and his simultaneous grunt masked the sound of me moving the planks above him aside and pulling the lid off the box of 26 nightmares, showering the headmaster with ravenous, crazed gladiators. My beauties began biting the headmaster as soon as they landed. The terror of the child farm, the demon named the Ranan Xenon lied curled around his toilet, eyes swelling shut, a mouth locked in a disgusted, surprised outrageous gurgle of horror as spasms racked his whole body. Before his eyes swelled completely shut, he saw my small 7-year-old face peering down the hole in the darkness. The missing child. The headmaster began to cackle. An NBSP. An NBSP. I told my father what little I knew. He corrected me on a few things. An NBSP. Because I owe you. You were an old man once, Howard. You were my partner within the Bureau. You were sent into the farm by yourself to try to shut it down. I will make sure you will get the help you need to remember. I had hoped that you would remember something about your past on your own, but, I see the headmaster got to you too. I looked behind me, using the set of mirrors to see my own back for the first time, and seeing it covered in handprints. An NBSP.
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is Horror Slop.
I watched the live face reveal of my favorite YouTuber. What I saw will always haunt me, by Colt Leisure. I come from a small mining town in Arizona where there is not a lot to do except hike. It was a good but boring area to grow up. Our population was small with little to no crime. My father owned the quarry where a majority of the community's economic strength came from. He left me a sizable inheritance after he passed away. I bought a truck and a house out in the plains with a basketball court and a pool. That was the sole extent of my lavish spending, but it was all I needed. The night of the scheduled face reveal, I booted up my PC. I kicked back on a lounge chair in the second-story room of my house, which was my entertainment space. It was complete with video game consoles and my beloved Alienware computer. An open bag of peppered jerky and a bottle of ginger ale sat next to my keyboard. I went into my email. The password was in my inbox. A man came into the frame. He was slim and wore a trench coat with maroon buttons on its front. He reached down, grabbed the lens of the camera, and shifted it upward. The familiar voice we had all grown fond of started to count down. Are you ready to see who I am? Isolation Infinity asked. 1, 2, 3, 4. I froze. I have been fantasizing about broadcasting this for a long time, he said as he licked his lips. You have made this possible, and so I need to show my appreciation by giving thanks in the most sincere way I know how. A woman in her 30s sat on a grimy floor, her head down from evident exhaustion. Rusted chains circled her arms. She wore a tattered black top, as though someone's knife or nails had left wounds on portions of her torso. Stains were on her clothes. She had spent time in the dirt fighting someone or clawing her way out of a soiled embankment before this. My heartbeat increased as I tried to close the window out. I could not. The X symbol on the right-hand side was visible but useless. It was like every virus-infected pop-up ad you could not escape from. Calm down, I reassured myself. This is an elaborate prank he's recording right now. He's wearing scary Hollywood makeup and she's an actress. This is all for the sake of getting more views. The chainsaw has to be a prop bought off Etsy.com. Still, my hand inched towards the phone to call 911. The way the woman expressed her misery in the moment was all too convincing. I held my device closer to my ear. Can he see me? He lifted the chainsaw above the woman's head. He brought it down with a noise from his throat which sounded like a cross between a scream and a laugh. A fountain of gore spurted out. The lens got hit with crimson bubbles. He cackled as I unplugged my computer. I carried it downstairs to my car, and drove to the nearest police station. I filled out an incident report in an office with a dying lamp and the scowl of a detective facing me. He looked as though he would have rather been anywhere else but at work. For the first 2 hours there, I had to convince them that I was not a crazy person. They thought I was there to waste their time with a fanciful tale of my correspondence with some creep. I hope it was all a hoax, I said. If this is not real, no one would be happier about it than me. Here's my computer. See if you can't trace where he's at in case it. I gagged before I could complete my thought. The idea of it being authentic was overwhelming. I went to bed that night with a host of emotions. I felt violated by a complete monster that sabotaged my privacy. Moreover, I felt dumb for getting swindled. I still feel shivers over the fact that he is not apprehended. Sometimes, as I lay my head down and drift off to sleep, I hear a noise by my window. I jump up and think it is a chainsaw. Thus far, it has been a neighbor's lawnmower every time. I hope it stays that way. END.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I did it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same dat crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.